Hey guys, it's Tessa Blanchard, the undeniable diamond and third generation professional wrestler. And today we're going to chat a little bit about what it's like to be an indie wrestler. So the life of an independent wrestler is a little different. So I guess I should start by explaining the independent circuit is primarily where if someone has the dream of being a professional wrestler, you might find a wrestling school in your city, your town, and through that you might go work the independent circuit. And what the independent circuit is a bunch of small companies all across, not just the United States, but across the globe. And it's basically like contract work. You go, you wrestle, you get paid, you leave. And then some independent promotions might have storylines, might have more consistent bookings for you. Like when I first started out on the independent circuit, I worked for a company called Pro Wrestling Experience, and I would work for them every single month, or some indies run once or twice a month, and you get that experience. So before I started working indie matches, I probably did 6 months of just pure training, and then I went out on the circuit. And I was living in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I remember I would take any and every indie booking that I could because I just wanted to be around wrestling. I didn't mind help setting up the ring, setting up chairs, whatever it was to just be around wrestling. And living in Charlotte, I remember that my dad had let me use my grandfather's van at the time. My grandfather had passed away, and in this van I could put all the seats down. And I remember I took a bowl bed, like one of those big giant bowl beds, and you can unzip it into like a mattress. And so I did that in the back of my van and made like a bed. So in the front were my seats, and then in the back I made like this bed. And so I remember I would drive usually to New York. That was like the hotbed of the independent circuit. And I would drive, I remember the furthest was Whitehall, New York, upstate. I think from Charlotte it took me about 22 hours. And I would pull off in Wawa parking lots to rest or sleep or little truck stops. So the life of an indie wrestler is a lot of road life. Before you get notoriety or your name, you're on the road a lot. I would drive to New York, New Jersey almost every weekend. I drove to Ohio. I drove to Florida. I was driving all over the East Coast, and literally every weekend. And at this time, I was trying to hold down a job as a waitress at a sports bar. And at a sports bar, your busiest nights are your weekends. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the same nights as pro wrestling shows. So usually the life of an indie wrestler is trying to balance a real life job or career in some cases as well. Successfully or unsuccessfully sometimes, but it ended up making me lose my job because of scheduling. I chose wrestling ultimately, and it doesn't always pay really well. Sometimes you're working these shows for just the experience. I like to say a hot dog and a handshake. I remember my first wrestling show, I asked for, I think it was like $75, and I had driven literally to Whitehall, New York, and they were like, "Why didn't you ask for more money?" And I'm like, can I? But for me, it's just, I was so hungry. I wanted to be around wrestling. I wanted to learn, how do I set up a ring? Can I set up the chairs? And sometimes I wasn't even on the show. I'd be like, please, like, I want an opportunity. I remember I had been booked I was on the independent circuit, and my first ever professional wrestling match was at Extra Spots for WWE. It was when they were still doing their house show loops, and so it was like a Monday Raw and then Tuesday SmackDown. So the Tuesday, I remember there was 4 girls there. 2 of the girls had experience, and then me and my friend Chastity Taylor had like no experience. Like, I kid you not, I knew a headlock and a hip toss, and I didn't have any professional wrestling gear. Like, I was very, very, very new. Hadn't even had my first match yet. And William Regal said, like, before doors open, we're going to do training matches. And so we thought, okay, great, like Chastity and then me, and we'll partner with one of the girls with more experience, and they'll help us. But that was not the case. The 2 experienced girls wanted to go together naturally because they want to have their best match that they can have. And Chastity and I went together. And I remember I borrowed a set of gear from a girl that was there who wasn't a wrestler. She was just doing extra work. And it was like a costume, and it was like a blue two-piece with like money signs on it. Like, so not what like my character would wear now. But I wore that. I still had never lifted a weight in my life, like didn't do the gym or anything. And we had a wrestling match, and I remember John Cena, Naomi, the Usos, they're all there, like, and they didn't know like anything about me. Like, I just was really not good. And then later I had told Scott Armstrong, by the way, that was my first wrestling match, and what followed was a WWE tryout, and nothing came of it, except for, I remember Regal told me, hey, Tessa, if we did not sign you right now, would you still wrestle? And I was like, well, yeah, I love this. He was like, well, then go out there and get experience. So sometimes the life of an indie wrestler is being told no a lot of times and having to bet on yourself and gain that experience. And like, fast forward, I remember I had an opportunity to do extra spots at NXT. And so I drove from Charlotte, North Carolina to Orlando, Florida. It took me about 8 hours. And I still, at this time in wrestling, was making like no money. I was still very new. And I got there and said hi to everyone, but didn't have an opportunity, didn't have a match. And I remember feeling very defeated, but also like, hey, that's the nature of the business, right? Like, sometimes it's just, you think it's one thing and it's another thing. There's a lot of changes. You got to be ready for anything. But at that time I was very young, very new. So didn't have a hotel, slept in Wawa for a little bit, and then drove all the way back home. I remember I got a call from William Regal, and he said, okay, we've got another opportunity for you in NXT. You're going to have a match this time. And I remember driving all the way there and did not have a match that time. And I remember just feeling so defeated. Like, I was like, damn, like, they said I was going to have a match and I didn't have a match. Turned around, drove all the way back home. And around that time is when Impact, like, I was talking to them a little bit, and I bet on myself. I was like, I know that I can be a star. I know that I can be great. I'm going to bet on myself. And fast forward, and that happened. But with TNA and with Impact, we still have the luxury of doing the independent. So we still get to experience that life of an indie wrestler. Maybe not like when we first started, because sometimes it's tough. Like, when I say road life, like, there's a lot of times where you're just going through the motions. And then once you get that notoriety to now they're buying flights for you or whatnot, it's a lot of very early morning flights. Sleeping on the airplane is sometimes the only sleep that you get. Sometimes you go to really cool places, but it's airport, hotel, venue. But it's this crazy business that, and I like to say it's that X that you can't get rid of. Like, we love it so much, but we put ourselves through some crazy, crazy stuff. And I remember there was a lot of nights sleeping in my car just because I couldn't afford a hotel, or I would pack all my meals ahead of time at my parents' house when I think I was so young, and I'd bring them on the road so that I could eat that and I wouldn't spend money. And I would try to sell my merchandise so that I could make enough money to pay my gas to get back. And then there was a lot of, it's just tough. The life of an indie wrestler is tough sometimes, but you don't really complain about those things because we love wrestling. We love what we're doing. And those 10 minutes or whatever the time is that you're in the ring, it's you and that one other person, and you're not thinking about your bills. You're not thinking about your relationship. You're not thinking about your problems at home. You're not thinking about any of it. It's just like an escape. You're just doing what you love. And we're all chasing this crazy dream. And I think, like, in my first few years, it was a little bit more innocent until some of the harder truths come out and different experiences happen that kind of change your mindset a little bit. But shoot, I remember some of my indie matches where, example, Remix Pro, I remember me versus Britt Baker. And she had a boyfriend at the time, and I remember it was his first time seeing her wrestle, and I went to the promoter and I was like, please let me lose this match and I let her win. It's her boyfriend's first time seeing her wrestle. I want her to win this title in front of him. And we changed the card that night, but I really wanted to be the wrestler that could have a match with anyone and make them shine. that was always my mindset. And looking back, like, I definitely believe that to be true. I wanted to be so versatile that even though I wasn't good yet, I wanted to wrestle everyone that was better than me. I wanted to go and train every style. I wanted to train Mexican lucha libre. I wanted to train Japanese strong style. So I went over there 3 months at a time, back and forth. I wanted to learn British strong style. So when I would do tours over there, I would get in the ring before the matches, or if there was anyone that was more experienced than me, like, hey, will you teach me this? I wanted to always be a student of the game, always be learning, never know too much. That way, no matter who I was in the ring with, from whatever country, whatever style, I could produce something great. That was always in my mind. I wanted to take maybe girls that weren't taken so seriously, girls like Rebel or Chelsea Green or whoever it was, take the girls that weren't taken as seriously and go and have a great match and show that they could do something more. And I feel like we did accomplish that. I feel like I was very proud of my indie story, my indie life on the indie circuit. And some people might have a bad taste in their mouth about being an indie wrestler, but I'm pretty proud of it. I feel like I wouldn't be the wrestler that I am. I wouldn't be as grateful as I am or feel as blessed if I didn't go through those crazy trials and tribulations of the indie circuit. But again, the indies are so much different than they were. Like now, I feel like with AEW and WWE, there's so many opportunities out there, and the indie, like before I remember, shoot, it could be Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I'd be in a different city or sometimes a different country every weekend. And it was like that hustle and bustle of like making towns, driving. I remember it'd be crazy. Like I literally would drive to New Jersey or New York. It felt like almost every single weekend, and then back to Charlotte. And to me, like, oh, 6 hours, 8 hours, that's nothing. That's a piece of cake. And a lot of the time, the life of an indie wrestler, you're getting a carload. The promoter's going to pay that gas for you, but you're making shifts into the driving. So that some people can sleep, and then these people can drive, and it's not super glamorous. But at the end of the day, like, what we would say in ROTC was embrace the suck, right? Like we'd be out in the field and it'd be like, this sucks, but we're together. And so we're okay. Like this sucks together. And with indie wrestling, sometimes that was the truth. Like it sucks, but no one says it sucks. Like the conditions or the miles that you have to drive or whatever it was, but we're together and we're doing what we love. So we're embracing the suck. So the life of an indie wrestler is not so glamorous, but when you get to meet some pretty cool people, you get some pretty cool stories. I know I could probably go on and on about countless stories and people that you've met at different truck stops across the United States, but at the end of the day, I feel like a lot of us have had to go through the indie circuit to get to that dream or to that next level or to wherever we are now, and I know for one that I am very grateful for it.